Usually when you are studying a new language, you are in this highly controlled environment.
Oh, absolutely. It is very structured.
Right. You are in a quiet room, maybe sitting at a desk. You have a textbook open in front of you.
And the audio exercises are perfectly crisp.
Exactly. The people speaking on the recordings, they pause politely after every single sentence. You have time to process the grammar.
You actually have time to breathe.
Yeah, you have time to breathe. It feels safe.
It is essentially a laboratory setting. You are learning the mechanics of the language in a vacuum, totally shielded from the chaos of the real world.
Exactly. But then, and this happens to everyone, you step out of that laboratory. You travel to New York or London or Sydney, and you walk into a busy cafe on a Tuesday morning.
Oh, boy.
And suddenly, that feeling of safety completely evaporates. I mean, it feels like you have just stepped into a Category 5 hurricane.
And sensory overload is immediate.
It really is. There are heavy machines hissing violently with hot steam.
Planky metal, people talking over each other.
Right. There's a line of like 15 people behind you, all checking their watches. The person behind the counter is shouting names at lightning speed.
It is intimidating.
And then you look up at the menu board, and instead of clear, simple English words, you are confronted with this massive wall of secret Italian-sounding codes.
And complex modifiers.
Yes. And the psychological pressure in that moment is just intense.
It really is, because as a language learner, you might know thousands of vocabulary words, but in that high-pressure environment, your brain simply freezes.
It just shuts down.
Yeah, it triggers a very real fight-or-flight response. You start to panic about holding up the line or saying the wrong thing or ending up with a drink you didn't actually want.
I have absolutely been there. I remember my first time trying to order coffee in a different country, and I ended up just pointing at a random pastry.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I drank black coffee I didn't even want, simply because I wanted the interaction to just be over.
I think every language learner has a story exactly like that.
So, for anyone listening today who is navigating the English language, this deep dive is crafted specifically for you. We're going to decode that menu board.
We're going to break it all down.
We're going to step into the storm, but we are going to do it at a comfortable, deliberate pace. We want to give you the precise vocabulary and the cultural context you need so the next time you walk into a cafe, you can order with absolute confidence.
It is a fantastic mission.
Yeah.
And we are going to look at a variety of aspects today. Not just the names of the drinks, but the unwritten social etiquette that governs these spaces.
Because learning a language isn't just about memorizing words, right?
Exactly. It is about understanding the culture that built those words.
But before we even get to the coffee beans and the espresso machines, I want to talk about the physical building itself.
Okay, the actual space.
Yeah, because to understand why cafe vocabulary is so complex, we first have to understand why these spaces hold such a massive place in modern English-speaking cultures.
That is a really important point.
They are clearly much more than just a place to buy a hot beverage.
They absolutely are. Sociologists actually have a specific term for this kind of environment. They call the modern cafe a third space.
A third space?
Yes. This concept was popularized by an urban sociologist named Ray Oldenburg back in the late 1980s, and honestly, it explains so much of our daily behavior.
Okay, so the third space, let's unpack that for the listener. What are the first and second spaces in our lives?
So the first space is the domestic sphere. It is your home.
Okay, home makes sense.
Right. It is where you sleep, where you eat breakfast with your family, where you are completely yourself in private.
So that is the foundation.
Exactly. Then you have the second space, which is the sphere of labor and productivity.
So like an office?
Your workplace or your university. It is characterized by hierarchies. You have a boss or a professor. You have deadlines, obligations, and very specific professional expectations.
So the first space is rest and family, and the second space is work and hierarchy.
Correct. Which leaves a gap in the human experience. Throughout history, human beings have always needed a third space, like a neutral ground.
A place to just exist.
Exactly. A place where you can gather, where there are no bosses, no family obligations, and no strict schedules.
What did that used to be?
In the past, this might have been a local pub, a town square, or a community center. Today, especially in cities across the US, the UK, and Australia, the cafe has essentially become that primary social hub.
I mean, I see that all the time. You walk in and you see two people on a first date in one corner, someone signing a business contract at the next table.
And a group of students cramming for a test by the window.
Right. It is a completely shared community living room.
Exactly. It is designed to be a great social equalizer. You can buy a $3 cup of coffee and sit for hours, existing alongside people from completely different walks of life.
But, that brings up a really interesting contradiction.
What do you mean?
Well, if the third space is fundamentally designed to be this relaxing, communal, low-pressure environment, why does the actual process of getting your coffee feel so aggressive and intimidating?
That is the great paradox of the modern cafe. The environment is designed for lingering, but the transaction is designed for extreme efficiency.
Efficiency over comfort.
That's right. And for a language learner, the intimidation comes from the sheer velocity of that transaction and the unexpected follow-up questions from the barista.
By the way, let's pause. Barista is an Italian loanword we use in English, right?
Yes, we use it for the person professionally trained to prepare espresso behind the counter.
Okay, so back to the interaction. If you practice your English all morning and you walk up to the counter and proudly say, "I would like a coffee, please," you expect a simple transaction.
You expect a basic exchange.
Yeah, you expect the barista to say, "Here's your coffee, that will be $3.
But that almost never happens. Instead, your simple request opens this complicated decision tree.
It really does.
The barista instantly fires back with a barrage of questions, like, what size? Do you want the dark roast or the light roast? Do you want room for cream? Is this for here or to go?
It is an ambush.
Yes.
If you don't know the vocabulary, your brain just stops working.
Precisely. The language used at that counter is highly specialized. It is this dense, coded shorthand developed to move hundreds of people through a line as fast as possible.
So to conquer that interaction, we have to learn the code.
We have to break it down.
Right. We need to build our vocabulary from the ground up, starting with the actual liquid in the cup.
The foundation.
Yes. When you look at the giant menu board behind the barista, it is almost always divided into 3 conceptual pillars: espresso-based, filter coffee, and non-coffee items.
Like tea or hot chocolate.
Exactly. But we're going to focus on the most complex pillar today, which is the espresso menu.
And that requires us to understand what an espresso actually is, because it is the fundamental building block of almost everything else on that menu.
I always like to picture an espresso shot as a tiny, highly engineered engine.
That is a great analogy.
It is the raw motor that powers all the other drinks. But chemically speaking, what makes an espresso different from just a regular cup of coffee you make in your kitchen?
It all comes down to pressure and extraction. When you make drip coffee at home, gravity simply pulls hot water through ground coffee beans over the course of a few minutes.
It's a very slow, gentle process.
Right. Espresso, on the other hand, is aggressive. The espresso machine forces near boiling water through very finely ground coffee at roughly 9 bars of atmospheric pressure.
Wow, 9 bars. That is a tremendous amount of physical force.
It is, and it happens fast in about 25 to 30 seconds. And because of that intense pressure, you get a highly concentrated liquid.
So it's not a big mug of coffee.
Not at all. And it is tiny, usually just 1 single ounce or about 30 milliliters. It is incredibly dark, almost syrupy in texture, and the flavor is profoundly strong.
Okay, and when you look at the menu, you often see the phrase double shot.
Yes. A double shot, sometimes called a doppio, using the Italian word, just means the barista uses a larger basket of coffee grounds to pull 2 ounces of that concentrated liquid instead of 1.
So twice the size, twice the engine power.
Exactly.
Right.
In many modern cafes, a double shot is actually the standard baseline for their drinks.
Now, if you order a plain shot of espresso, it is served in a tiny ceramic cup. But most people, honestly, find that concentrated liquid far too bitter and intense to drink straight.
It's definitely an acquired taste.
Oh, we start modifying that engine. And the most basic modification you can make introduces our first major menu vocabulary word, the Americano.
Ah, the Americano. It has a really fascinating history.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As the legend goes, during World War II, American soldiers stationed in Italy found the local espresso far too strong. They were used to the large, mild cups of drip coffee back home.
So what did they do?
Well, to make the espresso drinkable, they asked the local baristas to simply pour hot water into it.
They watered it down. They literally diluted the engine.
Exactly. And that is exactly what an Americano is today. The barista pulls a shot of espresso into a normal-sized cup and then fills the rest of the cup with hot water.
That makes sense.
It stretches the flavor out so the volume and strength mimic a standard cup of home-brewed coffee.
But wait, if an Americano is just watered down espresso to make it taste like regular coffee, why wouldn't someone just order a regular cup of drip coffee?
That is a great question.
Like, what is the actual difference in the final cup?
That is where the chemistry of the espresso machine gives you a unique advantage. The difference is something called the crema.
The crema. I have heard coffee enthusiasts use that word reverently, but what is it physically?
When that extreme 9 bars of pressure hits the coffee grounds, it forces the natural carbon dioxide trapped inside the beans to emulsify with the coffee's natural oils.
Okay, science. So what does that look like?
It creates this beautiful golden brown foam that floats to the very top of the espresso shot. That foam is the crema.
Oh, it looks almost like the head of a pint of dark beer.
Yes, very similar visual. And the crema contains an incredible concentration of aromatic compounds.
Oh, I see.
So when you make an Americano, that golden crema floats to the top of the hot water. So you get the mild, drinkable volume of a regular coffee, but with a much richer, more complex aromatic profile on top.
That is brilliant. Okay, so we understand our dark, strong foundation. We have the pure espresso engine, and we have the Americano, which softens that engine with hot water.
Right.
But the most popular section of the menu doesn't use water. It uses milk. Let's move into what we can call the milk family.
This is undoubtedly the most intimidating part of the menu for a language learner, because the differences between the drinks seem incredibly subtle.
Very subtle.
The primary trio you need to know are the latte, the cappuccino, and the flat white.
Let's start with the undisputed king of the modern cafe menu, the latte.
The latte is the drink for people who want a very smooth, comforting, highly accessible coffee experience.
It's very gentle.
Very. The word latte literally just means milk in Italian, and that tells you exactly what the drink is. By volume, a standard latte is about 80% milk and only 20% espresso.
So it is essentially a giant warm cup of milk flavored with a little bit of coffee.
Exactly. But the crucial detail here is the preparation of that milk. It isn't just poured cold from a plastic jug.
What did they do to it?
The barista uses a metal wand attached to the espresso machine to inject hot steam directly into a pitcher of cold milk. We call this steaming the milk.
And what does that steam actually do besides making it hot?
The heat from the steam triggers a chemical process. It begins to break down the complex lactose molecules inside the milk into simpler sugars.
Oh, wow.
And human taste buds perceive those simpler sugars as being much sweeter.
That is fascinating. So the milk literally becomes sweeter just by being heated with steam, even though you haven't added any artificial sugar to it.
Precisely. And the steam also changes the texture, creating what we call microfoam. Yeah, it makes the milk incredibly velvety and heavy. So a latte feels very rich, smooth, and naturally sweet in your mouth.
Okay, so that is the latte. Heavy, smooth, and mostly milk. Now, how does that compare to its famous cousin, the cappuccino? Because honestly, they look very similar in the cup.
If the latte is about smooth comfort, the cappuccino is an exercise in structural precision. A traditional cappuccino is defined by a very strict architectural formula, the rule of thirds.
The rule of thirds, how does that break down?
A proper cappuccino should be exactly 1/3 liquid espresso, 1/3 steamed milk, and 1/3 thick, airy milk foam.
Foam. Let's make sure we clearly define that texture for our listeners because it is different from the steamed milk we just talked about.
Good point. When the barista steams the milk for a cappuccino, they hold the steam wand closer to the surface to whip air into the milk.
Create bubbles.
Right. This creates a thick layer of millions of tiny bubbles. It is almost like a meringue or a white cloud that sits on top of the liquid.
So, because a full third of the cup is just filled with airy bubbles, I imagine that completely changes how the drink feels when you pick it up.
It does. It fundamentally alters the physical sensation.
How so?
Well, if you hold a 12-ounce latte in your left hand and a 12-ounce cappuccino in your right hand, the cappuccino will feel significantly lighter because so much of its volume is just trapped air.
Oh, that makes total sense.
It feels lighter in your hands and it feels lighter and more effervescent in your mouth.
I love that distinction. Latte equals heavy and milky. Cappuccino equals light and airy.
Exactly.
But recently, a third option has absolutely taken over global menus, the flat white. Where did this come from and why is it so popular?
The flat white is a fascinating cultural export. It originated in the 1980s, though Australia and New Zealand still fiercely debate which country actually invented it.
Naturally.
Regardless, it's swept across the UK and the US over the last decade.
And what exactly is it? Because again, to an English learner, a latte is espresso and milk, a cappuccino is espresso and milk, and a flat white is espresso and milk. How do you tell them apart?
It is all about the ratio and the foam. A flat white is specifically designed to highlight the flavor of the coffee engine, rather than masking it.
Oh, so it's stronger.
Yes. It is served in a much smaller cup than a latte, usually just 6 or 8 ounces. And it has a double shot of espresso as the baseline.
So you have twice as much coffee in a smaller cup.
Right. And crucially, the milk is steamed to have almost zero foam on top. The top of the drink is completely flat.
Ah, hence the name, flat white.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to clarify this for anyone listening who is worried about ordering the wrong thing. If I'm standing in line, how do I decide between a latte and a flat white?
Think of it as a spectrum of coffee intensity. If you want a long, relaxing drink that tastes mostly like warm, sweet milk with a gentle background note of roasted coffee, you order the latte. But if you really love the complex, strong flavor of the espresso beans and you just want a thin layer of velvety milk to take away the bitter edge, you order the flat white.
That is a perfect explanation. It is all about how much of the coffee engine you actually want to taste.
Exactly.
Now, those are the pure milk drinks. But what if you don't really like the taste of coffee at all?
That happens a lot.
Right. There are plenty of people who visit the third space who want something entirely different. They want sweetness. They want a dessert in a cup.
The cafe menu is always ready to accommodate the sweet tooth. The two most prominent drinks in this category are the mocha and the caramel macchiato. Let's look at the mocha first.
Okay, the mocha.
It is often considered the perfect bridge drink.
A bridge drink, meaning it acts as a transition for people who are trying to get into coffee but aren't quite ready for the bitterness.
Exactly. It bridges the gap between childhood hot chocolate and adult espresso.
I love that.
The name actually comes from the port city of Mocha in Yemen, which was a massive historical hub for the early coffee trade. The beans traded there had a naturally chocolatey flavor profile.
Oh, I didn't know that. So how does a modern barista build a mocha?
It is a three-part harmony. You take the pure espresso engine, you whisk in a generous amount of dark chocolate syrup or raw cocoa powder until it melts into the hot coffee.
Seems amazing.
Then you fill the rest of the cup with hot, steamed milk.
It sounds incredible. If you are learning the menu, just file mocha in your brain as a highly caffeinated, sophisticated hot chocolate.
Which brings us to a drink that sounds intimidatingly sophisticated. The caramel macchiato.
Yes, the caramel macchiato. It sounds like something you would order at a five-star hotel in Rome.
It does.
It has such a poetic ring to it. But what does the word macchiato actually mean in Italian?
The literal translation of macchiato is marked or stained.
Stained, like spilling red wine on a white carpet.
Precisely. And that translation is the secret key to understanding how the drink is physically constructed. A caramel macchiato is an exercise in visual layering. It's essentially an upside-down coffee.
And upside-down coffee. Let's walk the listener through the construction of this drink. Imagine you are watching the barista build it in a clear glass cup. What is step one?
Step one is the foundation of sweetness. The barista pumps vanilla syrup directly into the bottom of the empty glass.
Okay, so we have a puddle of clear vanilla syrup. Next.
Step two involves the milk. The barista pours in a large volume of hot steamed milk, filling the glass almost to the top.
So now we just have a glass of hot vanilla-flavored milk. Where is the actual coffee?
This is where the name makes sense. For step three, the barista takes the dark, intense shot of espresso and pours it directly over the top of the white milk.
Ah.
The heavy, dark coffee cascades down, marking or staining the white milk beneath it.
I love that visual. Usually you pour coffee into a cup and then add milk on top. Here you put the milk in first, and the espresso rests on the top layer.
Yes, the density of the liquids keeps them somewhat separated. And then, for the final decadent touch, the barista adds caramel sauce. They take a squeeze bottle and drizzle the caramel over the top layer of milk foam.
Drizzle is a fantastic vocabulary word for our listeners to absorb.
It really is.
It doesn't mean to pour heavily. To drizzle is to pour a thick liquid in a very fine, slow back-and-forth line, almost like you are drawing a delicate pattern.
So when the barista hands you the cup, you see these distinct horizontal bands. Vanilla at the bottom, white milk in the middle, dark stained espresso near the top, and a lattice of caramel drizzle finishing it off.
It is literally a work of art. Okay, so we have conquered the major drink names. We understand the espresso engine, the Americano, the milk trio of latte, cappuccino, and flat white, and the sweet indulgences of the mocha and macchiato.
That is the core vocabulary.
Awesome.
But as we discussed earlier, just saying the name of the drink is rarely enough. The barista's going to have you follow-up questions to customize that drink.
Right, dreaded decision tree.
Exactly. And the first major follow-up question usually involved the actual coffee beans themselves.
This is a classic point of confusion. The barista might look at you and ask, would you like to use our house blend today or our single origin?
Yes. These terms refer to how the coffee roaster sources and mixes their raw agricultural product. Let's define the blend first.
Okay.
The word blend simply means to mix multiple things together. A house blend is a mixture of coffee beans sourced from several different farms, often from completely different continents.
But why would a coffee company go through the trouble of mixing beans from Brazil, Indonesia, and Ethiopia all together in one bag?
For ultimate consistency.
Consistency.
Yes. Coffee is an agricultural crop. Its flavor changes depending on the weather, the soil, and the harvest season. But large cafes need their coffee to taste exactly the same 365 days a year.
Oh, that makes sense.
So master roasters mix different beans together to balance out the flavors. They engineer a flavor profile that is smooth, reliable, and identical whether you order it in July or December.
That makes perfect sense. It is the dependable baseline. How does that contrast with single origin?
Well, single means one, and origin means birth or starting point. A single origin coffee is isolated. It comes from one specific country, usually one specific region, and sometimes even one specific farm.
Why would a customer choose to isolate the beans like that?
Because they want to taste the terroir, the unique characteristics of that specific soil and climate.
It's like wine, then.
Exactly like wine. Single origin coffees are not blended for consistency. They are celebrated for their wild, unique flavors. An Ethiopian single origin might taste incredibly bright, with notes of blueberry and jasmine flowers.
Wow.
A Colombian single origin might taste like green apple and milk chocolate. It is a much more complex, adventurous tasting experience.
I have to ask a practical question for the learner standing in line, feeling the pressure of the people behind them.
Of course.
If they hear the barista say house blend or single origin, what should they do? Should they try to be adventurous or keep it simple?
Honestly, if you are already managing the mental load of speaking a second language, do not overcomplicate your coffee order.
Keep it easy.
Yes. The house blend is designed to be universally delicious and perfectly balanced. Simply say, house blend, please. It is the safest, most comforting choice. You can explore the wild flavors of single origins later when you feel more relaxed.
That is great advice. Reduce the friction wherever you can.
Yeah.
Now, the next follow-up question you might face relates to the chemical that makes coffee so popular in the first place, caffeine.
Right, the fuel.
Exactly.
Caffeine is a powerful stimulant. It blocks the receptors in your brain that tell you are tired. It wakes you up.
But it affects everyone differently.
It does. Sometimes too much caffeine causes a physical reaction. The vocabulary word often used for this uncomfortable feeling is jittery.
Jittery. That is when your hands start to shake slightly, your heart beats a little too fast, and you feel a nervous, vibrating energy in your chest.
Exactly. If you want to enjoy the ritual of a warm cafe drink, but you do not want to feel jittery, or perhaps it is late in the afternoon and you want to sleep that night, you need to know the word decaf.
Decaf is short for decaffeinated.
Yeah. Decaf coffee beans have gone through a remarkable chemical or water-based extraction process, often the Swiss water process, that gently removes about 97 to 99% of the caffeine molecules while leaving the flavor compounds intact.
So you get the taste without the adrenaline spike.
Exactly.
But what if you want to compromise? What if you are sitting at your desk, you need a little bit of focus to finish your work, but a full espresso shot will push you over the edge into feeling jittery?
Then you deploy a wonderful customization called Half-caff.
Half-caff, it rhymes, which makes it easy to remember.
It is brilliant in its simplicity. If you order a drink that normally gets 2 shots of espresso, you ask for it half-caff. The barista will physically pull 1 shot of regular caffeinated espresso and 1 shot of decaf espresso and mix them together.
You get exactly 50% of the stimulant.
Okay.
I love how precise you can be. But let's look at the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's say you have a newborn baby at home, you haven't slept in 3 days, and you have to work a 10-hour shift.
Do you need help?
You don't want half-caff, you need a weapon.
For absolute emergencies, the secret menu holds a drink called the Red Eye.
The red eye. That evokes such a visceral image. You picture someone stepping off an overnight flight, their eyes bloodshot and wide open.
It is an aggressive drink for an aggressive level of fatigue. A Red Eye is a standard cup of brewed drip coffee, but the barista takes a shot of highly concentrated espresso and drops it directly into the cup.
Oh my goodness.
It is an immense payload of caffeine.
Okay, so we have covered a massive amount of ground. We know the drink types, the bean origins, and the caffeine levels.
You have all the pieces.
But learning the isolated words is like learning the individual pieces of a puzzle. Now we have to look at how a fluent English speaker snaps all those pieces together into one long, fluid sentence at the cash register.
The syntax of ordering coffee is actually quite rigid. It follows a specific adjectival order.
Let's look at a highly customized order as our test case. Imagine a customer steps to the counter and says, "I'll have a large iced oat latte, half-caff, with 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla."
Wow.
Right. Large iced oat latte, half-caff, with 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla. If you can decode that sentence, you can survive any cafe in the world.
To demystify it, let's use an analogy. Ordering a highly customized coffee is exactly like buying a custom car at a dealership.
Oh, I like this.
You don't just walk in and say, "Give me a car." You specify the size, the paint color, the engine type, and the custom interior.
I love that framework. Let's break down the sentence using the car analogy.
The customer starts with the physical dimensions and the environment of the vehicle. They say, large, iced. Size and temperature always come first.
Iced obviously means the drink is built over ice cubes and served cold, usually in a clear plastic cup instead of paper.
Next, they select the exterior paint job, the milk option. They specify oat milk.
We should pause here to talk about milk alternatives because the vocabulary of dairy has exploded in the last decade. It used to just be cow's milk.
Yes, if you prefer traditional dairy, you have whole milk, which retains all its natural fat and creates incredibly rich, dense foam. Or you have skim milk, where the fat has been entirely removed, making it much thinner.
But environmental and dietary shifts have made plant-based milks incredibly common.
Very common. The primary options are soy milk, made from soybeans, which was the original alternative. Almond milk is very popular, but tends to separate when it hits hot coffee.
And then there's oat milk.
Right. Recently, oat milk has become the dominant choice. Oat milk contains beta-glucans, which are soluble fibers that allow it to steam and foam almost exactly like whole cow's milk. It is a barista's favorite alternative.
So returning to our sentence, the customer has chosen their frame, temperature, and paint job, large iced oat.
Then they state the base model of the car, the latte.
Large iced oat latte. We know that means a big, cold cup of mostly oat milk with a little espresso.
Now they specify the engine power, half-caff. We know that means a 50-50 split of regular and decaf espresso.
And finally, they add the custom interior luxury trim, the flavor profile. They ask for 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla.
The word pumps is crucial cafe vocabulary. Behind the counter, there is usually a massive rack of flavored syrups: vanilla, caramel, hazelnut.
I've seen those.
These syrups are kept in plastic bottles with mechanical pump dispensers screwed onto the top.
Kind of like a bottle of liquid hand soap.
Exactly the same mechanism. When the barista pushes the pump down once, it dispenses a perfectly calibrated half-ounce of thick syrup into the cup.
Very precise.
By ordering in pumps, you are commanding the exact level of sweetness. 1 pump is a hint of flavor. 4 pumps is intensely sweet. The customer here wants exactly 2 pumps.
It is a remarkable linguistic formula.
Right.
Size, temp, milk, drink, caffeine, flavor. Large iced oat latte half-caff with 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla. When you understand the logic, it isn't intimidating anymore. It is just a highly efficient data transfer.
It really is.
Yeah.
And once you deliver that data transfer, the drink portion of the transaction is complete.
Finally.
But the interaction isn't over. Now, you have to navigate the food options and the social etiquette of actually paying for the items.
Right, because you usually place your order while standing next to a brightly lit glass display box. In English cafe vocabulary, this is called the pastry case.
The pastry case is designed to tempt you while you wait. It is filled with baked goods and quick meals. You will typically see sweet items like blueberry muffins, which are individually portioned, dome-shaped cakes packed with fruit.
Or classic chocolate chip cookies.
Yes, but they also have savory items for breakfast or lunch. A very common item is a spinach and feta wrap.
Let's explain those words. Feta is a tangy, crumbly cheese originally from Greece, right?
Yes, and a wrap is essentially a sandwich where the ingredients are tightly rolled inside a large, soft flour tortilla instead of being placed between 2 slices of bread.
Now, if you order a savory item, like a wrap or a breakfast sandwich, you will encounter a specific phrasal verb. The barista will look at you and ask, "Would you like me to warm that up for you?"
Warm up. It seems obvious, but what does the process actually look like?
Well, it means the barista will take the wrap out of the plastic packaging, place it on a piece of parchment paper, and put it into a high-speed convection oven behind the counter for about 30 seconds.
It toasts the outside of the tortilla and melts the feta cheese inside.
Okay, so you have ordered your complex drink and your warmed-up pastry. The barista punches the buttons on the register. And then right before you pay, they hit you with one of the most culturally significant questions in the English language.
Oh, here it comes.
Is this for here or to go?
For here or to go. It is a question about your physical trajectory. Are you staying in the third space, or are you returning to the second space?
If I say for here, what happens?
If you say for here, it signals to the barista that you intend to sit down at a table inside the cafe. In many traditional or high-end cafes, this means they will serve your latte in a heavy, beautiful ceramic mug.
Complete with elaborate latte art poured into the foam.
Yes, and they will serve your pastry on a real ceramic plate with metal silverware.
It creates a much more refined, relaxing experience. But what if I am late for work?
Then you reply, to go. This signals that you are leaving the premises immediately. The barista will build your drink in a disposable paper cup with a plastic lid, and they will slide your pastry into a brown paper bag so you can easily carry it down the street.
Now, mentioning those disposable paper cups brings up a massive shift in modern cafe culture. Walk into any cafe today, and you will see signage everywhere promoting sustainability and environmental responsibility.
Absolutely. The environmental footprint of the global coffee industry is staggering. Billions of paper cups are thrown into landfills every single year.
Billions. That's incredible.
And they aren't just paper. They are lined with a thin layer of polyethylene plastic to make them waterproof, which means they are incredibly difficult to recycle.
To combat this, cafes aggressively promote the use of the reusable cup.
A reusable cup, sometimes called a travel mug, is a durable vessel made of stainless steel, thick, hard plastic, or insulated glass.
You bring it from home.
Right. The idea is that you purchase it once, and you carry it with you in your backpack or briefcase. When you get to the register, instead of taking a disposable cup, you hand your personal reusable cup across the counter, and the barista builds your drink directly inside it.
And cafes don't just ask you to do this out of the goodness of your heart, they incentivize it.
Yes, they offer a financial reward. Many cafes will automatically deduct 10, 20, or even 50 cents from your total bill every single time you use a reusable cup.
Over the course of a year, that is a significant amount of money saved.
Speaking of saving money, there is another strategy cafes use to keep you coming back to their specific store rather than the competitor across the street, and that introduces the vocabulary of the loyalty program.
A loyalty program is essentially the gamification of your daily coffee habit. When you are paying, the cashier might ask, "Are you a member of our rewards program, or do you want a loyalty card?"
In the old days, this used to be a little paper card they kept by the register, and the barista would stamp it with an ink pad every time you bought a drink.
Buy 9 drinks, get the 10th drink free.
Exactly. Today, it is almost entirely migrated to digital applications on your smartphone. You scan a barcode on your screen to earn points.
Now, I want to pause here for a psychological reality check for our English learners.
Yeah.
You are standing at the register. You are proud that you successfully ordered your oat milk half-caff latte. You are ready to tap your credit card and escape the pressure. And suddenly, the cashier is smiling brightly, asking you to download an app, give them your email address, and join a loyalty program.
It's a lot to process.
If you are in a rush, or you just feel overwhelmed by the language, is it socially acceptable to just say no? Is it rude to reject their offer?
This is a very common source of social anxiety, but you have to look at it from the cashier's perspective. They are required by their corporate management to ask that question to every single person who walks through the door.
So they are just doing their job.
Right. They ask it hundreds of times a day. They absolutely do not take it personally if you decline. It is not rude at all.
So what is the most natural, polite script a learner can use to smoothly end that interaction without feeling awkward?
You don't need to explain yourself or apologize profusely. You just smile, maintain friendly eye contact, and use a simple deflecting phrase like, "No, thank you. Maybe next time. I'm in a bit of a rush."
Maybe next time.
And as you say it, you hold out your credit card to physically signal that you are ready to complete the payment.
Maybe next time. I'm in a rush. It is polite, it acknowledges their offer, but it firmly closes the door on the conversation. Perfect. So you tap your card, the payment goes through, you step away from the register. The hard part is finally over, right?
You would think so, but no.
No. Because once you have paid, you enter the physical obstacle course of the cafe. You have to wait at the pickup counter, retrieve your drink, and then navigate a series of stations and unspoken physical rules just to get your coffee ready to drink.
This is where we encounter what we can call the challenge questions of the cafe experience.
Yeah.
These are specific phrases and physical objects that you must interact with correctly, or you risk making a massive mess.
Let's tackle the first big challenge question. If you order a standard hot drip coffee or an Americano, the barista might ask you, would you like room for cream?
Right.
What does leaving room literally mean in a physical sense?
It is about fluid dynamics and spatial awareness. If you tell the barista, yes, leave room, they will intentionally stop pouring the hot coffee when the liquid is about 1.5 inches below the upper rim of the paper cup.
They leave a cylinder of empty air at the top.
Exactly.
Why is that empty space so critical?
Because if you prefer to add cold milk or cream to your coffee yourself, you need physical volume inside the cup to hold that milk. If you forget to ask for room, the barista assumes you are drinking it black, and they will fill the scalding hot coffee all the way to the absolute brim of the cup.
And let me tell you from personal experience, this leads to a disaster.
It really does.
If your cup is filled to the absolute top and you walk over to the milk station and try to pour 2 ounces of cold milk into it, the cup immediately overflows. Hot coffee spills all over your hand, it pools on the counter, it drips onto your shoes. It is embarrassing.
To solve that problem, you are forced to do what many people call the walk of shame. You have to carefully carry your overflowing cup to the nearest trash can and awkwardly pour out a portion of your perfectly good, expensive coffee into the garbage, just to displace enough liquid to make room for your cream.
It is a tragedy. Don't pour good coffee in the trash. Just memorize the phrase, yes, please leave some room. It saves your shoes and your dignity.
The second major challenge question involves a physical tool called a sleeve.
The sleeve. It is also sometimes referred to as a cup jacket. What is it, and why was it invented?
A sleeve is a small corrugated ring made of thick, recycled cardboard. You slide it onto the bottom of your paper cup and pull it up until it wedges tightly around the middle of the cup, right where you grip it.
Who invented that?
It was actually invented in the early 1990s by a man named Jay Sorensen, who famously burned his fingers on a hot coffee cup and dropped it in his lap.
So its entire purpose is thermodynamics. It is a heat shield.
Exactly. Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. Hot coffee is usually served at around 160 degrees Fahrenheit. A thin paper cup is a terrible insulator. It transfers that intense heat directly to your sensitive skin.
It literally hurts to hold a fresh cup of coffee.
The cardboard sleeve is corrugated, meaning it has tiny folds and ridges inside it. Those ridges create microscopic pockets of trapped air between your hand and the hot cup.
Oh, that's clever.
Air is a fantastic thermal insulator. The sleeve protects your skin so you can comfortably carry your scalding hot beverage down the street.
It is an incredibly simple yet globally necessary invention. Now, where do you physically find these cardboard sleeves? They're usually located at a specific piece of furniture called the condiment station.
The condiment station, sometimes called the condiment bar or stand, is an isolated counter, usually located against a wall away from the busy cash register. It is the final destination in your coffee journey before you leave or sit down.
I think of the condiment station as a finishing touch workshop. The barista provides the raw materials, the coffee and the cup. You take it to the workshop to customize the final product. What kind of tools do we find at this workshop?
You will find all the logistical supplies. First and foremost, the lids.
Lids are the molded plastic tops with a tiny drinking hole that you press onto the rim of your paper cup. You have to push firmly until you hear them snap into place, or they will pop off when you walk.
You will also find stirrers. These are very thin, flat wooden sticks, or sometimes hollow plastic straws, used exclusively to agitate the liquid and dissolve your sugar.
And speaking of sugar, the condiment station is home to the sweeteners. You will usually see glass shakers of granular white sugar, brown sugar, and cinnamon.
But you will also see a rainbow of tiny paper packets. These are the artificial sweeteners for people monitoring their caloric intake.
Oh, right, the colored packets.
In the U.S., the packets are color-coded. Pink packets are Sweet and Low, yellow packets are Splenda, and green packets are Stevia, which is a natural plant-based zero-calorie sweetener.
And finally, sitting in the middle of the station, you will usually find heavy metal thermoses called carafes filled with cold, whole milk, skim milk, and half-and-half cream. That is what you pour into the empty space you cleverly asked the barista to leave at the top of your cup.
So, you have your drink, you snap the lid on, you slid the protective sleeve over the cup, and you stirred in your yellow packet of Splenda. You are fully equipped.
And now, you turn around, look out at the sea of tables, and decide to sit down. You are finally ready to experience the third space. But we aren't quite finished because the seating area is governed by its own set of invisible social rules and a specific written signage.
This is where the sociology of the cafe really comes into play. As you scan the room for an empty table, you might notice small brass plaques on the tables or chalkboards on the wall that say, laptop-free zone.
A laptop-free zone. We all know a laptop is a portable folding computer, so this sign dictates that you are strictly forbidden from opening your computer in this specific area.
Correct.
But wait, I am confused. Didn't we establish earlier that the third space is exactly where university students and remote workers go to sit for hours and be productive? Why would a cafe ban the very tool they use to do that work?
It is a fascinating pushback against modern digital isolation. Cafe owners realized that if every single table is occupied by one person wearing noise-canceling headphones, staring silently at a glowing screen for 6 hours, the cafe stops feeling like a vibrant community hub. It starts feeling like a sterile, silent corporate office.
It kills the energy of the room. There is no ambient chatter. There is no social friction.
Exactly. By designating specific tables or entire rooms as laptop-free zones, the cafe is artificially engineering social interaction.
Forcing people to be present.
They are forcing people to read a physical book or look out the window or, most importantly, actually look at the person sitting across from them and have a conversation. They are fiercely protecting the original intent of the third space.
That is deeply interesting. They are protecting the vibe. But assuming you are not in one of those restricted zones and you genuinely need to send an important email, you are going to need the internet. Which brings us to the Wi-Fi protocol.
Almost every cafe in the world offers free wireless internet. It is an expected amenity. But getting access to the network requires knowing where to look.
Right. Cafe owners do not want people sitting in parked cars out on the street streaming movies on their network. They only want paying customers to use it.
So, to restrict access, the network is always locked with a password. And the standard protocol is to automatically print that daily password at the very bottom of your receipt.
The receipt is the small thermal paper slip the cashier hands you after your credit card is approved, proving your purchase.
You have to scroll your eyes past the price, past the tax, all the way to the bottom, and you will usually see a code like Coffee Lover 2026.
But what if you told the cashier you didn't need a receipt? Or what if you accidentally threw it in the trash at the condiment station? You are sitting at your table and your computer won't connect.
You have to go back to the source. But there is an etiquette to this. You do not shout across the room. You walk back to the register, you wait patiently until the barista is entirely finished serving the customer in front of you, and you use a polite, direct inquiry.
Let's give our listeners the exact script.
You make eye contact, smile, and say, "Excuse me, could you tell me the Wi-Fi password?"
Excuse me, could you tell me the Wi-Fi password? It is polite, it is grammatically flawless, and it gets you exactly what you need.
Now, there is one final piece of vocabulary you might see written on the chalkboard menu or advertised on a sign near your table. It is an adjective used to describe food or syrups, and the word is house-made.
Try our house-made banana bread, or we use house-made lavender syrup in our lattes. What does that prefix house signify in this context?
It is an indicator of craft and quality. If an item is house-made, it means it was prepared from raw ingredients right there in the physical kitchen of that specific cafe by their own staff.
Why is that a selling point?
Because the alternative is industrial mass production. Many large corporate cafes buy frozen pastries that were manufactured in a giant factory hundreds of miles away, wrapped in plastic and shipped on a truck.
Yuck.
A house-made item implies that someone woke up early that morning, mixed the flour and eggs by hand, and baked it fresh. It implies care, culinary skill, and usually a vastly superior flavor.
So if you see the word house-made, it is highly recommended that you order it. It is the cafe showing off their best work.
Absolutely.
We have journeyed through an incredible amount of information today. From the chemistry of espresso extraction to the sociology of laptop-free zones. But I want to offer a final word of encouragement for the English learners listening to this.
Yes, this is important.
What happens if you walk into a cafe tomorrow, you remember all of this, you step up to the register, and you freeze? You panic. You say latte when you really wanted an Americano, or you completely forget the word for sleeve.
I want to be incredibly clear about this.
Yeah.
Making a mistake is a necessary part of the process. It is completely okay.
You are not going to be kicked out of the cafe.
Not at all. Think about the barista's reality. They interact with hundreds of stressed, distracted human beings every single shift. Native English speakers stumble over their words all the time.
That is very true.
Native speakers drop their credit cards, they order the wrong size, they accidentally spill milk at the condiment station. It is just part of the chaotic rhythm of the job.
The barista is not silently grading your English grammar. They are just trying to hand you a warm beverage that makes your morning slightly better.
Exactly. The only way to truly internalize this vocabulary is to use it. You have to willingly step into the storm, embrace the friction, because that is where the real learning happens.
I completely agree. So, to ensure you are armed and ready for that storm, let's do a final review of the core power words we decoded today.
We started with the foundation of the menu: the concentrated espresso, the water-diluted Americano, the milky latte, the airy cappuccino, and the coffee-forward flat white.
We explored the sweet bridge drinks, the chocolatey mocha, and the visually layered stained caramel macchiato.
We broke down the follow-up questions, deciding between a consistent house blend and an adventurous single origin, managing your adrenaline with decaf, half-caff, or the extreme red-eye.
We mastered the adjectival order of the custom drink: size, temp, milk, drink, caffeine, flavor, large iced oat latte, half-caff, with 2 pumps of vanilla.
And finally, we navigated the physical space, leaving room for cream, protecting your hand with a sleeve, and ordering your food either for here or to go.
It is a phenomenal toolkit, so here is our call to action for you, the listener. The next time you find yourself standing in line at a cafe, do not default to the easiest, safest option. Do not just point at the menu and mumble coffee.
Challenge yourself. Use the vocabulary.
Yes, order something highly specific. Ask for your cappuccino with extra foam. Ask for your latte with oat milk and 1 pump of caramel. Take control of the transaction, and we want to hear how it goes. Please leave a comment wherever you stream this deep dive. Tell us about a time you successfully navigated a complex order, or if there is another strange coded word you have seen on a menu that you want us to explain.
Now, before we officially sign off, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. Something to quietly ponder the next time you are sitting at a table, sipping your beautifully layered macchiato.
Oh, I love these final philosophical shifts. What is the thought?
We have spent this entire hour analyzing a language that is fundamentally designed for relentless speed. We learned how to encode 6 different physical and chemical preferences into a single breathless sentence, like large iced oat half-caff latte.
Right. It is language optimized for maximum data transfer in minimum time.
But consider the environment where we use that language. We established at the very beginning that the third space was sociologically designed to be an escape. It is supposed to be a sanctuary from the pressures of work, a place for slow, ambient community connection, and a refuge for relaxation.
Yes, the living room of the city.
So the contradiction is profound. If the cafe is our designated sanctuary for relaxation, why does the language we use to enter that sanctuary prioritize extreme efficiency, relentless speed, and highly demanding, hyper-individualized customization? Why do we treat the acquisition of a comforting cup of coffee like we are programming a high-speed industrial machine?
Wow. That is a heavy, fascinating observation. We desperately crave a slow, communal space, but we are so culturally conditioned by speed and individuality that we aggressively demand our comfort to be produced with factory-level precision in under 90 seconds. That tells you everything you need to know about the tension of modern life.
It really does. It is the great paradox of the third space. Something to think about while you watch the barista steam your milk?
Well, we want to warmly thank you, our listeners, for spending your time in our linguistic third space today. We know that stepping out of the safe, quiet classroom and into the chaotic real world is daunting, but you have the tools now.
Keep practicing, keep speaking, and above all, keep enjoying your coffee.
The next time you walk through those glass doors, the hissing steam wands and the long lines won't feel like a storm anymore. They will just sound like the welcoming noise of your new favorite community hub. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone, and good luck out there.